Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. So today's a bit of a rant. So I did sell my Sony or return my Sony gear, and I'll tell you why. But before we get into it, today's kind of a big day, right? It's kind of an odd day where we have three announcements today that are all photography related in a lot of ways. One, we had the new Fujifilm X Summit announcement today. Then we had the Panasonic announcement, and then we have the iPhone 15 release event. And I haven't seen the iPhone release event at the time of filming this because it hasn't been out yet. But it's interesting, and I want to go on a rant about camera makers and what their business is and what's going on. So today we had the GFX100 Mark II. Incredible camera, $7,500, but medium format, spec'd out to the max for a medium format camera. Just incredible, okay? And then we had the G9 Mark II, the successor to the G9, and they did some things there. I'll talk about that. And then we have the iPhone 15. And when you look at the camera market, you look at what's going on with people that use their phones and take pictures, the non-professionals, it's just more and more people, or less and less people, I should say, are picking up physical cameras like what I'm filming you on now because it just doesn't make sense. And it's almost like the photo industry, the photography industry is doing it to themselves. Or maybe they think that they've seen some kind of market trend and they're going that route. More people are picking up phones for photography and using them well. And I understand why, because of the convenience and everything else, instead of picking up real cameras. And I think to myself, we've got manufacturers now competing for a very small niche part of the market. Everything seems to be mostly geared towards professionals or, yeah, basically professionals. Like the money, the build quality, the things that made cameras so great in the past are only really being applied, I think, in my opinion, outside of a few exceptions, to these professional type cameras. Look at a manufacturer. The Nikon Z8 and Z9, very expensive, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 camera. And then you get like the Z5 and the Z6, and they're not really putting much attention into it, and they're okay, and they're still big, and they're still kind of expensive. You look at Canon, they got the Canon R3 and the R5, but the camera that most people would pick up and maybe choose because of maybe size and cost, the R8 is like it's a toy compared to the other ones. You could say the same thing for Sony as well. Sony A1 and the A9s, even the A7 IV, which is a great camera. Most people aren't going to pick those cameras up at $2,500 a body plus a good lens because of several reasons. I mean, they're big, they're expensive, and most people don't have the time to dedicate to learn them. And it's those three things that I think the manufacturers are missing out on. It's like they're all fighting for this ever shrinking piece of pie. And you can see it in the sales and the statistics and that kind of stuff. And I think they're missing a big part of it. My belief is, and from talking to people, say, hey, I want to be able to take good pictures and my cell phone is just okay. And how do you get your pictures to look that good? And there's some curiosity there to learn. And then they go, what's your budget? Oh, it's $500. Oh, it's $1,000. Maybe it's $1,500, right? Go put together a good camera kit that's got the aesthetics, the feel, the build quality, the buttons, the ergonomics, and a lens together for that price new, right? And then tell someone to go learn it. And I think if manufacturers would just spend some time focusing on like the Pen F Mark II. Look at what the X100V has become. It's nuts. Right? And I would say Leica with their M cameras would have a similar thing if they weren't so manual and so expensive. But why aren't manufacturers spending their time thinking about something that's small, compact, portable, good build quality, can do, they have the technology to do it. Are they really protecting their professionals? Professionals buy cameras and they don't mind the big grips most of the time. They want the ergonomics. They want all these things that professional cameras have, because they're going to hold on to them. I mean, look how many people are still shooting DSLRs. Go to a wedding. Most the weddings I go to, anyways, are still shooting like Nikon D850s, Nikon D800s, Canon 5D Mark IVs and 5D Mark IIIs. Then you see your Sonys, but they're like A7 IIIs sometimes. Professionals know that their cameras are a tool. They want them big, built, beefy, robust, and they hold on to them because they make money for them. But for people that are like me and you, where we want to take better pictures, we want to enjoy the feel of a camera in our hands, the options are getting less and less. It's like cheap afterthought junk or just plasticky stuff, or you have to go spend big money and big lenses. So I sold my Sony. That's why I'm telling you this, or returned it. Great camera. But when you start putting like the 70-200 f2.8 lenses, the ones that make a difference, especially over micro four thirds, where you start seeing the real image quality differences, it's just like I'm never going to carry this thing around. It's just not going to happen. I know that. Now there are a few lenses for Sony that kind of maybe make that statement not true, or like the 2.5G lenses, like the 50, the 40. I think there's a 24 as well. But if you're going to shoot a 50mm 2.5, why not put a 25mm 1.4 on your micro four thirds camera, still be smaller and lighter, right? And have the option to have all the other things, like for example, this EM1 Mark III or an OM1 are professional cameras. I'm kind of rambling here, but my point is I think the camera market is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of ways. I think they've looked at market research and said, hey, we need to go for the top end stuff and try to be the last man at the top, which is clearly a Sony and Canon race right now. Everyone else is falling further and further behind because of technology and R&D that needs to go into it, and sensor production and all that kind of stuff. And everyone else is falling way behind. And even Olympus, even now the G9 Mark II, back to that. That body really is no different in a lot of ways than an S5 Mark II. Like, what's the compelling reason if you're new into photography to pick that up? Either you're an existing micro four thirds user, so you're not going to gain any market share. All Panasonic can hope to do here is stop the bleeding, right? Because if you're brand new into photography for $1,699 or $1,800, whatever the pricing was, why not an X-T5? Why not something smaller, more compact and portable? Why not an X100V if you can find one? They're doing it to themselves. They keep releasing the same camera, the Me Too cameras, and it's like they're all after a certain small portion of the market. And I'm sure there's some marketing data to back some of that up, but I'm telling you, if Fuji came out and made a super premium, nicely built, well-priced X70 replacement, or maybe a small pared down X Pro, like a Fuji X100 sized or smaller X Pro, they can fit an APS-C sensor in there. Olympus or OM Systems, make a premium Pen F Mark II and re-release all the 1.8 primes as 1.4s and keep the size similar. I know there's some physics that could play into that, but you can do that and make it compelling. If you're someone that's interested in photography and you go to the store and you look at it and you say, wow, look at that Nikon Z8, or look at that, even the Nikon Z6 II or Sony A7 Mark IV, and you start doing the math, and before you put a couple lenses on it and yada, 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 you're $4,000 into this thing or more, and then you have to learn how to do photography, which your phone does all that stuff for you. It's not very compelling. Oh, and the interface. Like, to go from my camera to my phone and to post, it's a pain. Like, the Fuji app doesn't even work half the time. And then a lot of these apps, they send them over as compressed, like 2 megabyte files, and you don't even know that until you go up in the settings and say, I want actual size. It's just a pain in the butt. And these manufacturers, they're stupid. Whoever would take the time to make a interface that was easy and easily linked to their smartphone in a good way, and made small premium cameras that people can learn and grow with, make them user-friendly, I think they would have a win. I know I'm gonna get some flack for this, but I think there's been attempts at this, but they're all crappy attempts. Everything in this market is like an afterthought. If Panasonic, for example, today would have came out and announced the GX90, GX9 successor, and did some stuff around that was actually, involved some R&D, I think you would have an interesting conversation on your hands. Fuji, I don't know when they're gonna announce the X Pro successor, but there's an opportunity as well. And even the XE line. You get a lot more people that are able to put that in a coat pocket or be on vacation with just, that slung over their shoulder, or maybe in a small bag or something like that, where they're willing to do that little extra work to get that image quality and have the feel of a camera in their hands. But when you start doing things where you have to carry big cameras, it's not worth it to people. Then it's work. You have to sit down on the computer and RAW files or maybe JPEGs, but you still have to transfer it, and the Fuji app doesn't work. Yeah. And I just was thinking about it. I keep going back to my EM1 Mark III or Olympus bodies, right? And it's because it is a pro body. There's no doubt about it. It's fast, it's metal, it feels great in your hands, and I can put small lenses on it and keep it compact and do everything I want and need, and it's not a burden. When I went to Nevis, I think it was earlier in the year, I had my SL2S with me, and I came back and I immediately sold it. Not that it isn't a great camera, it just was too big. The pictures were phenomenal, loved it, too big. And so I've returned my Sony for a similar reason, and I'm on my Olympus. And then of course, you've got my Leica right here. And you know, this Leica, the problem with the Leicas is they're expensive. They don't show you exposure preview, and they're all manual everything. This is for somebody who's really into photography and is an enthusiast and understands it. This is not a learning person's camera. I mean, you can learn with this and you'll be benefited for that, but it's not a learning person's camera. And you know, you look at the lenses that I have for micro four thirds, little 25 1.8, little tiny guy here. Or maybe it's this 45 1.8, this little tiny thing right here. I mean, this is where it's at. And I have the option still to go buy a 1.2 Pro lens if I want to really try to get more bokeh or depth of field. And you start getting into the conversation then, does that make sense? Because, well, we've talked about it in other videos. Just was watching these announcements today, and I thought to myself, who's really going to buy the GFX100 Mark II? That's such a small crowd of people. Huge lenses, super expensive, big, heavy. No. Even the G9 Mark II, you're going to maybe retain some of your micro four thirds users. No one's going to switch. You know, I think Sony's probably the closest that you can be to doing it right with the A7C series, the A7C Mark II. Canon would have done a bit more on the R8 and made it more premium. I think they'd be close-ish, but maybe. And Nikon's not there either. Just my thoughts. For me, anyways, it's about this. Because on specs, everything looks great, and you can take all the reviews you want. But when you play with enough cameras like I have, you realize that portability and ergonomics and feel trump everything. I mean, all cameras can take good images these days. You know? So, just a rant. I don't know. I suspect that the iPhone 15 is going to do great photography features built in, and you will further encourage people to just use their phone and not get into real cameras. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it doesn't matter what you're using as a device. Maybe the phone is good enough now. Something to think about. For me, I prefer to hold a camera, but if these manufacturers want to survive, they better start thinking differently. Otherwise, I think we're going to see a major shrinking of the market over time. All right, that's it, guys. Micro four thirds all the way, right? Yay. See you guys.